So now I just want to get right into this panel, which is moderated by a former engineer turned tech journalist, media personality, content creator, professional speaker, and author of Don't Let Your Digital Footprint Kick You in the Butt. So please welcome technology and lifestyle expert Stephanie Humphrey.
How y'all doing tonight? Thank you so much for coming out. We are excited to have a very engaging and lively conversation about artificial intelligence, but of course, let me invite my panelists to the stage, and I will read a little bit about them as they come up. We're going to start with Dr. Deborah D. Roebuck, DMP and menopause whisperer. She's a distinguished healthcare professional and the founder and CEO of Going Through the Change, a company dedicated to empowering women through every stage of menopause. As an international speaker and workshop leader, she leverages her extensive experience to educate on menopausal wellness and advocate for comprehensive women's health. Dr. Roebuck is not only a respected elder tech innovator, and we're going to talk about that, but also deeply involved in global missions striving to improve lives across communities. To her right is Suleiman Rahman. He is the founder and CEO of DiverseForce and P4 Hub, a strategic human capital solutions firm that specializes in cultivating diverse leadership pipelines and inclusive ecosystems across all sectors. Suleiman has been a recognized business and civic leader for over 15 years and a personal friend of mine for even longer than that. His latest offering is Game Changers, an AI-focused professional development membership program. Suleiman serves on numerous boards, including as vice president of the board of directors for Community College of Philadelphia Foundation, a board of trustee and executive committee member for Mastery Charter Schools, a board member and governance committee member for the Kimmel Center for Performing Arts, and a board member for Lendistry, a startup fintech company. To his immediate, give it up, doing big things. To his right is Akinyemi Bajulaye, is a Nigerian-American entrepreneur with a background in media, life sciences, real estate, and technology. He co-founded One Jollof, a media and lifestyle organization focused on the African diaspora, and is actively building Pentridge Media, an AI-powered content and marketing automation business. Additionally, Aki is an active investor and trader in the decentralized finance and Web3 sectors, using his expertise to drive innovation and educate his community. And finally, last but certainly not least, Shelton Mercer is an award-winning entrepreneur, philanthropist, and speaker, and has founded and led venture-backed companies in technology, media, sports, and entertainment. He is founder and chairman of the Mercer Advisory Group, a collective of companies that include Mercer Innovation, Virtuous Innovation, and Mercer Venture Partners. Shelton is also the creator of MeOS, Mercer Innovation Outcome Systems, which has catalyzed and powered multiple innovation districts, hubs, and ecosystems worldwide. Shelton is the co-founder and former president of blockchain integrated media and entertainment company Audigent, and co-founder and former CEO of Mashable award winner celebrity social impact engine TwitChange. He serves on multiple philanthropic boards and has led aid missions worldwide and impacted 50+ countries and dozens of U.S. cities. Thank you to all of our esteemed panelists for being here this evening. So we're going to start kind of with a baseline, just so everybody in the room sort of understands what we're talking about. When Suleiman asked who had heard of artificial intelligence, everybody kind of raised their hands, but I want to hear from our panelists, our experts themselves, what they think we're talking about. So starting with Dr. Roebuck, how would you explain AI to your friend who wasn't very techie?
Well, let me say, first of all, a lot of my friends are not very techie because of my age group. And when I talk to them about me taking a course around AI, they say, oh, Deborah, that's not right. And I tell them, very much, I tell them, I was fearful myself about it until I went to a conference and I met Suleiman and also Mercer. And They start talking, and I said, okay, what is it? And when they kept saying 10 times 10, it is a tool that you can use to teach you, help you learn, help you mind map, give you an opportunity to do something as simple as how do you fry fish in 10 steps. So that's what I think about AI, and I'm excited about it.
It's the ultimate how-to. That's great. Suleiman, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, I would say it's like having a college-educated expert in your pocket, right? I mean, you have almost a second mind, if you will, that you can basically, and it's advancing even more. I mean, we've basically, in the first time in human history, that we've cloned human intelligence. And that can be scary, of course, right? But I hope today we talk about some of the benefits of it, but also some of the things that we have to think about from a safety and ethics standpoint and governance standpoint as well.
So I would start by describing it as giving machines human qualities. I would say that AI is very broad, and so it's not something that's new. However, over the last 2 years, this conversation around AI has been focused on conversational and generative AI. And so when it comes to that, which is where a lot of the conversation is around, we're talking about having a thinking partner. We're talking about almost having like an additional colleague, an assistant, and an enhancer that can really help you achieve your objectives a lot faster and increase your level of productivity.
Am I on here? Here we go. Let's see. So, one, AI is not new. AI has been around for at least 30 years. We've been using AI in the tech and governmental and university world for at least that long. But AI is not going away. It's not a fad. So AI and generative AI is, we're going to talk about some of the tools, is probably the most significant technology to come along since the internet. And so it is going to dominate the way we live, the way we breathe, the way we interact with each other, the way we get recipes. And you're already using it right now if you are using a smartphone, a computer, or a smartwatch. So, and even your Nest thermostat in your house is using artificial intelligence. So it is here to stay. It is part of who we are. And so we got to learn how to embrace it and channel that in ways that can benefit our communities and our individual families.
So y'all hear that? AI is about to be your best friend. So get to know it. Don't be afraid. That's what we're here today to do. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge everybody that is listening live on WURD 900 AM, 96.1 FM, and at WURDradio.com and the streaming platforms. We thank you for joining us for this special Philly Tech Week program. And we're at the P4 Hub talking about artificial intelligence and Black realities. We are going to unpack AI's true impact. And we know how inequality in America affects almost every aspect of the Black community, unfortunately. So let's talk about some of the pain points in specific communities that have sort of led you all to embrace AI as a possible solution. So I'm going to start with you, Suleiman. What were the gaps in tech innovation that you saw among entrepreneurs that led you to create the Game Changers program?
Yeah, one of the things that what we do with DiverseForce is about cultivating leaders to be in leadership roles, to empower folks to have the skills to be able to have family-sustaining careers and advance their careers. And we've seen for years that, unfortunately, our Black communities have been left behind when it comes to tech and STEM. You see Silicon Valley, and it's very homogeneous, and we're not represented there as far as entrepreneurs and tech innovators, and we're not at the table, if you will, when it comes to creating these things. Shelton talked about AI being around for a long time, but it was actually 2022, in November 30th, that ChatGPT came out that basically made it accessible to everyday people. So basically democratized AI in a way, in a form in which we can talk to it, we can ask questions, in a form in which we can start businesses. There was a time when AI, in order to program or develop AI platforms that use AI, like the Googles of the world and these big mega companies, you had to hire a lot of software engineers and folks in order to build those big companies. It didn't make sense for the average individual to be able to invest that much for a very niche type of business, where there's kind of this long tail effect, and the long tail meaning that you can smart all these smaller businesses that now are accessible because AI is accessible to the everyday person, right? So there's so many opportunities that we can take advantage of and be on the forefront of it. And when I saw AI and recognized the power of it, I said there's one of two things. Either we're going to be watching the game, playing the game, or not even know the game is being played. And we have to be on the forefront of that. We can't allow the fear to keep us from understanding it. And also AI is a look back. It's actually it's very biased based on history as well, because all it's learning from is our history. And in order for it to learn more culturally relevant, to learn more inclusive things, we have to be engaged with it as well. So it's learning our culture and not just other people's ideas, biases that have historically left us out.
Thank you. Shelton, I'm curious about disparities that you've seen. You started the IBCU. Can you talk about that and talk about disparities you were seeing in education? Because I think when we think about colleges and universities, we think they should already be on the forefront, but what were you seeing that led you to want to create this organization?
Yeah, IBCU stands for Innovation with Black Collegians and Universities. So it is focused on HBCUs, but also working with black college students throughout the country. So we work with students at Harvard as much as we work with students at Howard, from MIT as well as Morehouse. We've worked a lot with the UNCF. Shout out to Chad Womack, who's the director, vice president of STEM from Philadelphia. He's national here, based in Philly. He's a Philly guy. The challenge that once we started IBCU was because I frankly wanted to engage more with black college students, because as Suleiman mentioned, a lot of the companies that I've founded, my corporate career has been all in that mainstream, very vanilla rooms and very vanilla places. And you know what I mean by vanilla. No offense to my grandmothers over here. But there is, thank you, my brother. There is a need for the type of democratization, as you mentioned, but also the access. What we got to do as leaders is, when we are in those rooms, when we're at those places, is provide those pipelines, those ladders, those boosts to make sure that we're bringing people into those rooms. So what we decided to do is, if kids at Harvard, kids at MIT, and my kids are Ivy grads, daughter from Yale, my son from Penn, they're getting the best tools ever. I want to make sure that black students can have access to those tools. So if they're getting venture capital and seed funding for their startup at age 19 at a university, we need our kids at Cheney and our kids at Winston-Salem and our kids at Tennessee, Texas Southern, Tennessee State.
FAMU.
And FAMU for you. So but they are on point, so they're ahead of the game a lot of times. The challenge is not the knowledge. A lot of it, Governor Kathy Hochul from New York yesterday said something about black kids never seen a computer on. I'm gonna get in trouble because I said it on air, but she said it, I didn't. And she got lambasted. That's ludicrous, right? I mean, most young people know how to use their iPad, the computer, their program on the Roku at your home, the Netflix, getting that remote ready for their grandmother. What they don't have is access to capital, access to coaches, access to customer acquisition, mentoring, getting into the room. They don't go to country clubs, so how do you get to meet a Suleiman, right? How do you meet an Ike? How do you meet a Tech Life Steph? You have to be able to have that network. So we've been expanding that tribe, that ability to bring brilliant people into the rooms, with people with resources, with people with enterprises, with people with capital, and starting that as young as we can. I wish we could get down to K-12. We're trying to get there too. But at least if we can work with our college students and give them a fair kind of widen the aperture and create some parity That's why we started the IBCU, and AI is literally the #1 skill set that we are seeing young people in all sectors, not just in tech, in finance, in marketing, in communications. That ability to have the AI skill set is really key.
Absolutely, absolutely. Leveling that playing field. I love it. Love to see it. Dr. Roba, can you speak specifically to where that disconnect might have been? And you talked a little bit about this in your definition of AI, but where was that disconnect in the senior community as it relates to getting those access to opportunities in tech and innovation?
Let me just first of all say, oftentimes as seniors, we're going through constantly an environment where change is happening so quickly. And someone said, you ask your grandchild, you ask your young people in your life, how do you do? And they, and then they're like out the door. And so there is a gap. It's not that we're not able, it's that the way we learned in school has totally changed. And I'm gonna tell you, and I say to people in my age group, I'll be 70, the fact that, amen, that I knew nothing. When the pandemic came, I didn't know how to do Zoom. I didn't know how to do social media, but the situation forced it. And so now we are a large part of the population. And if we don't get on board, we're definitely not being models to the other people, the other generations. So it's extremely important.
So you're going to lead by example, Dr. Roba.
Absolutely.
Amen, amen, and amen. Aki, what were your specific pain points for your initial clients that motivated your pivot into sort of that AI-driven automation space with Pentridge Media?
For sure. So I would start by talking about what my initial pain point was, which I have a podcast called the Pepper Soup Talk Show, and this podcast, I was a team member responsible for editing each episode, and so I would spend 15 plus hours each week editing these episodes, chopping up clips, posting them on social media, and when I came across an AI tool, Opus Clip, it brought my editing time down maybe 60, 70%. I went from spending 15 hours
Wait a minute. Say that again for everybody. What was the name of the tool?
The name of the tool is called Opus Clip.
Opus Clip. Continue. Thank you.
So I brought my editing time down by 60 to 70%. And that was really, for me, when I really began leaning into these AI tools and the AI space. I've always been into emerging technology, so I've always embraced these kinds of concepts. But from there, with Pentridge Media, I started basically as an offshoot from the digital marketing and media work I was doing with my partners. I started it as something to offer to other people, but it really shifted into that AI automation kind of space because of what I was seeing with the impact that those tools were having on what I was doing.
So, I wanted to ask those questions so that we could understand that there is a role that AI is going to play across multiple industries, in your personal lives, kind of in education, in entrepreneurship, whatever you think you are doing or going to do or have dreams to do or designs to do, AI is most likely already playing a part or will play a big part in that. You may need to upskill yourself for the job you're at currently to learn how to use AI more effectively so the robot doesn't learn how to do your job better than you. So we are definitely going to see AI, artificial intelligence, sort of infiltrate its way throughout everything we do going forward. But as we know, AI, like any other technology, can be a bit of a blessing and a curse. And I want to look at some ways that it has actually caused harm to our community. I think, sometimes we do kind of get excited about new technologies and everything that it can do for us, but there are some things we need to consider as we are trying to sort of fold this technology into our daily lives. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things we've been seeing in the media, first of all, and I'm going to come to you, Shelton. How have we seen AI be used as a tool to reinforce some, let's just call it racist rhetoric in the media recently?
Well, I think the A in AI needs to be transformed to authentic, because it is more difficult than ever to figure out what's real and what's not. And so before we even get into the racial aspect, it's important for us to understand that we are often targeted from people all over the world with messages of malinformation and disinformation. Disinformation is the lingering effect of a pandemic. It has expanded thousands of percent, where there are people being paid to willfully and purposefully deceive you, mislead you, guide you astray, run you amok, and all the various things that we've been talking about. And so to be woke enough to understand that what you see and what you hear anymore may not be actual and authentic is really important. And so part of what has happened is, I think part of the biggest issue is the way that things are programmed often have bias built into them as well. And so Suleiman, alluded to it. A lot of the companies that have created these tools are from Silicon Valley, and the people who are programming don't look anything remotely like us. And so the algorithms, the prompt pieces, the databases, how the machine is taught to interpret what you are saying and render results. Here's a result. Here's one. There are people who were complaining initially because if you would put in a lawyer or doctor or a professional because you want the machine to render you a picture, an image, right? You get this, they say, hey, go in there and get your images. It'll put together an image for you in 10 seconds. And you say, I want doctors huddled around a clinic for wellness in urban Philadelphia. And they put none but white and Asian folk, and nobody looked like us is there. And that was happening over and over again. And so they went back and said, listen, that's because they have biased the machine, because the programmer of the machine, the ghost in the machine, put their own bias into the algorithm. And so there's been a lot of challenge around how, from a regulatory and from a policing, the tech community can help the folks that own the technology, these companies like OpenAI and Microsoft and Google, who are powering these massive, and generating billions of dollars of wealth to themselves, that they're not producing and perpetuating the myths, the tropes, the racism and oppression rather, and putting it on steroids on ways that we could never, because if the machines are taking over and they don't know that we exist in places other than flats like unemployment and low jail rates and all the stuff you hear politicians say, then we are going to be so far behind. And so I actually work with a group of folks that I want to put a tool out. There's a tool called Latimer AI. Latimer AI, founded by a good friend of mine, John Passmore. And John is based in New York City. Latimer AI is working with Professor Molefi Asante at Temple. And they are trying to make sure that there's at least one tool out in the AI market that is going to include the rich history of the diaspora, the rich contributions that Black and brown folks are making, and counterbalance some of that bias. But that is a real piece, and so I'll say Latimer is an alternative that you can start using to try to help, but we've got to get into the mainstream and make sure we approach those biases that are in there.
Absolutely. I'm actually on the wait list to get into Latimer. And I love that you said the A needs to stand for authentic, because y'all know that picture with Donald Trump and them brothers wasn't real, right? Yeah. Just FYI if you didn't. Dr. Roebuck, How much more potential harm do you think AI could do in an already biased medical community? Because we already know what the medical community is doing to us when we go to the doctor. How can AI, sort of 10x the harm that we face?
Well, one of the things I would like to say is when you're getting most of your information, and even when it comes to research, and as far as the various cures or the approaches or what have you, it's usually a certain group of individuals that information is being pulled from. So let's just talk about, for example, menopause. When you're talking about menopause, mostly it's usually women, white women, and very often black and brown women are not included in that data. And when you're looking at menopause, there's various signs and symptoms that woman or that population of women will be having or experiencing, but it won't be addressed if you put the question in there, what is menopause? What is the highest number of individuals? What are the signs and symptoms? And here you'll say, well, my signs and symptoms aren't included. Maybe I'm not really thinking or feeling or experiencing what I am. And it causes a sense of doubt and not confident about this transformation that you're going through. So we need to make sure that everybody's sitting at the table, whether it's research, whether it's opinions, whether it's perspectives, especially when it comes to the healthcare community.
Thank you, absolutely. So I want to pivot to you to talk a little bit about the negative impact that we've seen AI tools have on policing and law enforcement in the Black community.
Yeah, so good question. When you think about, now AI has the ability, when you look at surveillance and all the videos that, are everywhere, right? Cameras that are everywhere. And there's, I don't know if you ever, use some of these platforms. I know I've used platforms and it doesn't recognize my face, or it could actually think that you are someone else, right? So in that case, you're thinking about surveillance and the bias in some of this technology that can misinterpret who a person is or conflate who they are, and now this person's being as if this data is accurate, right? So there could be some very positive things, and here's one thing we have to understand too is that who remembers dial-up with the internet? Remember dial-up? When the computer called the internet? And we could pull up a website, and the website comes up slowly. You go grab a meal, you come back, and it's still loading. Who remembers that, right? So we are literally in the dial-up stage of AI right now. We're in the beginning stages, so it is going to improve, but we have to be engaged in it to make sure that we improve it as well. But it can have strong implications in that respect.
Absolutely. I just talked about on my podcast recently, The Tech John, there is a company called ShotSpotter, which had cameras in Chicago that listened for gunshots in specific neighborhoods, and they were wrong like 85, 90% of the time. But they were still sending these units out to these areas based on faulty AI, based on faulty artificial intelligence, telling them that there was some sort of, weapons activity happening that wasn't. But then, you get there, the police get there, there's nothing happening. But are the police really just going to get in their cars and go back to the station? No, they're going to look for something or create something potentially that is going to contribute to the over-policing of our community. So we really do have to be in those, city council meetings, in those governmental meetings where they're talking about the implementation of these products to ask, what is the failure rate? What is the accuracy of these tools that you want to put in our communities? We really have to be advocates for ourselves and our communities when it comes to artificial intelligence as well. Aki, I want you to talk a little bit about how large language model, first of all, explain what a large language model is and how they can be trained to reinforce bias.
Yeah, so large language model, and I would say the most popular one now is ChatGPT, which has kind of become the Uber of this whole AI and conversational AI space. It's a model that's trained on a very large data set, that you're able to query, ask questions to, ask requests to, and really actually have a conversation with. And so with these large language models like ChatGPT, the impact of them is that you're now able to get all the kinds of work that you would otherwise be doing manually, be able to do them automatically now, whether it's assistance writing essays, assistance copywriting, assistance with your recipes and all kinds of workflows, for your business, for your work. I would say that something that's important to talk about, however, and Shelton was mentioning earlier about just this idea of authenticity, is that when it comes to ChatGPT now, with it being ubiquitous, everyone using it, you're starting to see so much generic content on the internet, and you're seeing words that are constantly repeated. If you use ChatGPT enough, you start seeing certain words just come up again and again and again. And so something that's important is just tinkering with these tools enough so that you can learn how to effectively use them in a way where you're able to maintain that authenticity in the work that you're producing and the content that you're putting out.
Can I add to that too?
Yes, please.
Yeah, and just adding to that, what Aike's talking about, so learning how to prompt the large language model as well, giving it instructions on how you wanted to talk, the tone that you wanted to talk, maybe potentially even people you wanted to imitate, as far as you can upload your information and say, I want you to actually talk in my tone, use my language. Another thing with large language models is that they're now multimodal. And what that means is they can now see, they can hear, right? So you can take a picture of your meal, or you can even take a picture of your refrigerator, what's in there, and say, can you actually tell me what I can make, make for dinner tonight based on what you see in my refrigerator, right? It can hear, so you can actually talk to ChatGPT as well, so it can listen, and you can, I think Rose talked about, she was at a committee meeting, right, or a council meeting, and actually transcribed what was being said at that meeting, and there was language that was being used to try to get over, if you will, on the community, but she was able to translate it and then say, now talk to me as if I'm a third grader, and explain what you're saying, and was able to bring that back to the community to say, listen, when they were saying here, is X, Y, Z. So it's really powerful. You can actually text it to write things for you. You can text it to create images for you. So now it's actually in Facebook, right? So Meta actually has ChatGPT. You can actually ask it to make images for you. You can do text to video as well. It's now actually getting to a point where you can text to cinematic video, is why Tyler Perry basically stopped the $800 million studio deal in Atlanta, because he realized that you may not need a whole studio, because this now AI is actually doing the work for you creatively. So I just want to make sure you all understand how this is evolving as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to direct this question to Shelton and Suleiman, but Aike and Dr. Roebuck, please feel free to jump in as well. What would you say your predictions were about what we can expect, the impact we can expect AI to have on our elections come this November?
How much time do we have? This is CNN here, huh? Well, it already is. And so, unfortunately, you mentioned the Donald Trump stuff. I mean, you're going to see more of these AI-generated, doctored, not just photos, but now you can do videos. So there's going to be tons of bad information. And I spent a lot of time earlier talking about that, so I won't bore you. But I think that that's the biggest thing. If you can make sure you tell your friends and family, you don't want to make people alarmists, but they got to be on guard. The stuff that's out there, and I want to be clear, people are literally making millions and billions of dollars to purposefully and incessantly deceive and delude and distract us. And so, and the distraction has been there, right? Entertainment and all the stuff has been there. But it's the delusional, the deceit that's so sinister. And there are unfortunately, one of the parties, the major parties in this country, has decided that they would lean very heavily into an entire platform of deception and division and delusion and all of that. And so I think that what's going to happen is you're going to have more of your family sending you stuff from Facebook and Instagram and Threads or wherever they get it from, and Telegram. I'm telling you right now, if you got a parent or older person, don't let them use Telegram. Take it off their phone, delete it. It's probably one of the most subversive tools that doesn't get talked about. But so you got to be on guard. I think what we're going to see, though, is there was just a piece that just the other day where one of the sportscasters basically went on the air with a false story and did an entire segment on a story that was fabricated, had images and all, from AI. And so we're going to see some of our trusted institutions become corrupted because it's so quick to get these types of really authentic looking pieces of information. There's no one way to approach it, but I think you just have to say verify, verify, verify. Don't trust what you see right away. Look it up. Look to see if you can find additional news stories about it, and then be careful. Twitter right now has gone to an AI-generated with its trends and its For You pages, and so now Twitter is generating what it believes from AI stories are talking about. And I will tell you, our team has been monitoring them. Probably 60% of the headlines now are incorrect or have misleading information on a trusted platform that we thought we could trust. So even some of those things that we have revered are being co-opted and corrupted. So it is a very, very, very tough minefield out there. And I would say lean on the folks in the community. I know Suleiman and the team here does a great job. This guy, Aki, is one of the most brilliant people I've ever known. Absolutely, absolutely. I hired him in 2016 to run the laboratories at UPenn at Pennovation, and I know that he's taken AI to another level. I call him and say, help me. So lean on us and let us help you out so you're not led astray.
So,
Yeah, I just think we have to be very mindful that there's also other countries that benefit from civil unrest in our country and can cause, like Shelton said, divide. So we have to be very critical with our eye and using this, only by using it and seeing and stand up on it will you really understand how some of these things, you'll see some of the little nuances, but at some point it'll be indistinguishable what's true and what's not. And I don't know what a society looks like right now, a society where we can't believe what we see. There'll likely be some emergence of blockchain technology, things of that sort to really authenticate real information. But as Shelton said, we're many times the first audiences to be targeted because we're so far behind to recognize, sometimes so far, parts of our communities are sometimes so far behind that we don't even recognize that this stuff is fabricated, created in a way. So we're already seeing that for the election coming up, but also just in general, civil unrest and dividing ourselves and our communities against each other.
absolutely. I think it was in Maine where folks were getting fake robocalls from an AI-generated Joe Biden. So, as we get closer and closer to November, you really, really have to use a lot of discernment with everything that you ingest from the internet. And don't be so quick to share. I know we like to get the clicks, and we like to get the likes, and we like to have everybody commenting on our stuff. But don't be so quick to share before you've taken a moment to just ask yourself, could this be fake? Could this be something that's fake? I think it's worth asking yourself that question before you share anything these days. And I just want to
I'll just add the fraud too. So the fraud,
absolutely.
The wealth that's already been stolen from us so many times. Thinking about how AI can now mislead people to steal your wealth, to get into your bank accounts, to actually duplicate family members and make it sound like they're calling you for money or for your information. So it's very important that you stay on top of this stuff and recognize some of the schemes that are happening.
I don't want to pile on, but I've been a victim. And that's why I say it takes everybody to I've been a victim of AI. focused security fraud and security breach and financial fraud. And I have another friend of mine that is in the West Coast. They literally spoofed. You know, who's got the banking app and they call you from the bank or you get a note that says, you know, your card was used somewhere not supposed to be used. There's a way now they are spoofing the actual text message, clone your phone, call you from the bank, and then co-opt your phone and then log into your account. And so I don't want to, again, because I hope we're going to get to some aspirational good stuff.
Yes,
We
absolutely, absolutely.
you know,
We are going to end on a
you're
high
taking me
note.
back to my pastor
You really
days. I got
are.
to give them a
didn't
good story.
I didn't mean to trigger you, Shelton.
I got to make sure the folks want to,
I didn't mean to trigger
you know,
Well,
we got to get the offering time. here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me do a quick reset because I want to take another moment to acknowledge everyone that is listening live on WURD 900 AM and 96.1 FM at wordradio.com or on our streaming platforms. It is Philly Tech Week, y'all, and we are still here at the P4 Hub talking about artificial intelligence and black realities. We are unpacking AI's true impact, and as we have seen, there is a significant impact on all of our lives across every sector, every industry, every community. So, you know, kudos to all of you for being here, for showing up tonight to want to learn more about, you know, what you need to know and what we can all do. So let's talk about that. We're gonna try to bring it up and end on a high note. So, Sewell, I'm going to start with you as CEO of DiverseForce. How do you see AI's impact playing out in workforce development in the black community? I mean, is AI going to take all our jobs or what? What's happening?
Well, the adage is that AI is not going to take our jobs, but people using AI are going to take our jobs. So you have to you're going to be on the side where you're equipped with AI and using it effectively. And the powerful thing is that it creates an opportunity for those who don't have skills in certain areas to now have those skills. You know, you hear for years we talked about being a programming or learning how to a programming language, and some people just don't have the time or capacity to learn programming. But now with AI, basically everyone's gonna be a programmer because they now have technology and platforms that are evolving. It's something called Devin.ai, which actually is programming for people, and it's gonna get better and better. So you can actually tell your app to create an app for you. Okay, so the opportunity for you now to take those ideas, that creativity, and create a business or to work in a company or offer your skills and say, listen, I could do X, Y, and Z, right? Because now AI, working with it and being empowered to use it, you can now have skills that you didn't have before. Does that make sense? On top of that, we have to start asking our children, you know, our young people, instead of saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because the reality is things are changing too fast. A better question is, what problems do you want to solve when you grow up, right? What problems do you want to solve? Now they can think a little bit more holistically because being a functional employee, you know, it's gonna, you know, we're gonna get to a point where you have to be more strategic. If you're not an entrepreneur, you have to be an entrepreneur, meaning you may work in a company, but you have an entrepreneurial mindset. And you actually have the wherewithal to leverage different tools because we're going to see the downsizing happen. We're going to see a lot of people losing their jobs over the next few years as a result. But you have to be strategic with these tools and be able to use them in a way that can amplify you and make sure that you're on the right side of that technology.
That's why we're all here tonight. We can get started just tonight. Dr. Roebuck, tell us about elder tech. What does that mean, and what role does AI play in elder tech?
Okay, first of all, I even had to look the definition up. What does elder tech? Let me tell you, it's all about the population of, and I hate the word in a way, elder, mature adults. And how can we use technology to help us as far as our quality of life, as far as something as simple as, for example, I had a friend who has an illness, and she was on the floor for 12 hours. Nobody knew it. Somebody from my church says, something's not right. She found her on the floor and was able to get her the appropriate health care. And I said to her, do you have an Alexis in your house? I want to make sure that in all your different rooms, you have something that you can say, Alexa, I'm on the floor, call the emergency room. You know, as another thing is when it talks about elder care, and I'm gonna just be honest for you, as far as elder tech, I started a business at 65. I came to DiverseForce, didn't know anything, and I have now developed my own app called Hot Flash Harmony. Who would have thought? And so I've moved from, okay, I do speaking engagements and what have you, but now I'm thinking from a technology perspective, how all the different apps that I'm going to develop and how I'm going to even grow from there. So I say for the people who are mature, you had a dream, you had an idea, come to DiverseForce, game changer, and you will learn these skills.
Game Changers top student right here. Dr.
Valedictorian, yeah.
We love it. We love it. That's wonderful. Aki, I've heard you talk about using tools like ChatGPT to close the tech divide. I saw there was a LinkedIn post, I think I saw that you talked about that. How do you see that happening?
Yeah, well, I would say as far as closing the tech divide, it's ChatGPT, but these AI tools at large. Dr. Roebuck's, what she just said about being able to create an app using these AI and low-code tools is something that literally would have been impossible years ago. And there's something that really needs to be spoken about that, because we're now in a place in society where just with your imagination, you can build out your own tools for others. I was just speaking with a person before we started this panel who is teaching kids how to code. And he is teaching them how to become full stack developers. But now being able to combine that with different AI tools and automation tools, they can create in a way that just wasn't possible in the past. And so something that I just keep coming back to in my conversations is interview, and I think I mentioned it to Suleiman at one point, interview with the CEO of the company NVIDIA, which is one of the companies really powering this AI revolution. And he said in that interview that we are all now developers. And it's important that we take that to heart and really lean in, whether you have a tech background, whether you have a non-tech background, because the tools exist for you to literally create your future.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Shelton, I'm going to turn to you now and talk about the role that AI is playing in the creative economy. Do you think we'll see sort of a displacement of artists and creators at scale? And will AI companies really acknowledge the contribution of creators' IP and building these large language models? Are they actually going to start paying us for our work and our intellectual property?
So there's two parts of that. This is one, if you are a content creator or know a content creator, right now is the most exciting time for them to be alive, because what has hindered a lot of non-well-off or wealthy content creators is the cost that it takes to get equipment, the cost for editing, the cost for post-production, all those things. My son is a filmmaker, and he is right now down in WXPN using 5 different cameras and one person with AI to film the nom-com. And we're seeing that young creators, particularly creators of color, are now able to operate and participate in the creative economy in ways they could not, because they can generate. You mentioned about Tyler Perry pulling back the $800 million for that studio. Well, part of that, because film production, content production costs have gone down because of the time savers and the tools that can be accessed to be able to produce content. So producing short films, producing moving video and images is really easy to do with these tools. The other side is we are looking at the way blockchain can become, and blockchain is another technology that's more about authentication, right? So think of it as if I pass you $10 and then you pass that $10 there and then you decide to take $2 and pass it to them, we know everywhere it goes in the chain where it originated from, and I was the original giver of the 10, and you gave 10, you only gave 8, it'll keep track of what the authentic person, who that content belongs to. And so I think what we're seeing with AI, it's speeding up the, accelerating this whole issue of intellectual property and rights and how that's become a challenge, particularly for, again, for content creators of color who don't have access to IP attorneys and trademark attorneys the way some others. So there is some democratization there. But I think the exciting part is the way you can produce content. And I mean this in your personal life. Right now, if you needed to come up with some images or some video, you can go right into one of these tools that Aki talked about. And I'm going to give you, well, I'll save that for the closing, but because there's a key way that I want to help you. She's like, give them now. Well, I'm looking at, I'm filibuster, so I don't want to take too much of reclaiming my time. Can I give them really quick? All right. So Suleiman mentioned this. How many use Microsoft Word or Excel or PowerPoint? Okay. So you have a Microsoft account. Most of you probably do. All right. Don't do it now. We'll do it when we wrap. But I want you to go on your Microsoft account. If you have Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, you also have something called Copilot. Copilot is Microsoft's answer for ChatGPT. Remember, we talked about the large language models and the tools. They all use kind of this open AI. One is like an Apple, one is like Uber, one is like Airbnb. They're all the same. Copilot is free for you if you have a Microsoft account. You're going to think of these 4 Ps, all right? The first one is a persona. Every time you talk to the Copilot, I want you to think about who would normally do this work. So if you wanted to take a trip for your summer vacation, you're going to say, you are now a luxury travel agent, because I know y'all got a lot of money. Y'all go to those fancy Caribbean islands, right? A luxury travel agent, and I want you to find me the top deals in whatever place you want. Now, that's where the persona is. The prompt is, I want you to get me the 10 top destinations with the lowest airfare in the next 12 months, and I want you to put it in a table format. Make a spreadsheet for me in 12 seconds. So you've got the prompt, so the persona, the prompt, right? I told you I was a former preacher, so I got my points. Persona, the prompt, then I want you to be persistent, because the first response may not be the one you want. So you're going to tell it, yeah, that was cool, but I want you to try again. This time, add some more information. Give me the website links. Consult some other places. Only use one airline. Whatever it is, you want to keep talking to the machine, if you will, and use that as a persistence. And then I want you, for the final P on that, is that person, you are the person in the machine. You're the only human being in the whole transaction. So don't allow the machine to tell you and change you. Make sure that that's your assistant that you're using for your own efficiency. So you're going to do your persona, your prompts, persistence, and you are the person in charge. And you're going to have Copilot if you use Microsoft, ChatGPT if you're using something else. They all are using accessing some of the same data. And so unleash some of your life real quickly that way.
Listen, Shelton just put y'all up on game. Give that man a round of applause. All right, so we are coming up on time here, so I'm gonna stick with you, Shelton, as we wrap up, and I'm gonna ask this question to all of our panelists, but we'll start with you, Shelton. Where does the African American community fit in the future of AI?
Well, I mean, look at us. I mean, and kudos to my brother Sul, because Suleiman has been a leader in not just this city, but in around the country, around the world, and bringing people together. I'm glad there's so many people here, because sometimes when there's new things like this, we have this tendency to have fear, right? take over, and people say, oh, no, I don't want to touch that, don't do it. No, lean into it. And I believe that the ability for black and brown folks to generate efficiency in their lives, that's what this, I use ChatGPT and Copilot every day as that's not my executive assistant, it's my efficiency assistant. I can get stuff done in 10, 50, 60 times faster than I could before. We need more people that are like you, who are using Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You didn't know how that worked 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. Jump in the pond, get in there, use the AI tools, become those resident experts in your community and your family. And I think it's going to unlock knowledge, and it's going to unlock activity that we haven't seen before. And then some of you are going to be able to start businesses or improve your own business and generate additional wealth and resources for your family. So let's embrace it, and again, use the tools and the people who are here to help you and guide you, so you know how to use it efficiently and can ask the questions you need.
Keith, same question. Where does the African American community fit in the future of AI?
I would say that it's up to us. I think it's up to us how we approach it. You know, Shelton mentioned fear versus leaning into the technology. And something I've been noticing with businesses I've worked with is after you've, let's say, integrated AI tooling or automation to their workflow, the existing staff members, how they feel about the changes that may be happening in the company. And I'm noticing a need to upskill, a need to retrain existing staff, but then also just through talking with people, seeing it starts with kind of like a fear of, is my job at risk? But then the other lens of it is learning the tooling and embracing it and being able to increase your output for the company you work for, the company you're building. And so I think a lot of this has to do with the mindset around what's currently happening. And so I encourage us all to continue to lean in. And I believe it's up to us where the African American community ends up. And being an optimist, I say that we'll be at the forefront of it.
Beautiful. And, I'll echo what Shelton and Aki talked about. One thing I'll caution, using AI over the last year, over 2 years, close to 2 years now, you could lose your ability to critically think. So you can start getting lazy with your mind. So you have to be very cautious. And if you use it, but still think till your brain hurts sometimes. Like, continue to use that muscle, and you can multiply yourself 100, 1,000x if you keep that, right? Keep that critical thinking and use it as a co-pilot, but don't get so lazy that we're not thinking anymore, and just use it to be our brain, because before you know it, now it controls us. Does that make sense? So it's important that we do that. We use it to amplify, don't let it replace us. And two is, I visited Atlanta, and I just watched what's happening out there in Atlanta with some of the young people and some of the entrepreneurs that are happening, and they're creating movements around areas that they didn't think that they say black folks don't really know a lot about, like trading stock and starting trucking companies, and they're creating movements. And you'll literally, there's conferences that we typically see, and there's none of us in the room. But then you'll go to Atlanta and see 10,000 people in a room, black folks there to learn about financial literacy, to learn about investing, and it's amazing. So it really takes sometimes one person, takes sometimes a group of us to just start to create momentum in a movement around this. And this is a movement worthy of us not only to use these tools, to master these tools, but also be at the table to talk about the governance, the safety, the ethics, and how it impacts our community. The only way we're going to do that is by being at the table, not just talking about it, and use it. I know a lot of us are thinking, some of us are actually, who actually have downloaded the app and actually use it? Raise your hand, okay? So I'm looking at probably about 30% of the room. Okay, ChatGPT. Let's just say ChatGPT. Raise your hand. ChatGPT. All right. And now you can access it through different tools, right? But just download, it's chat.openai.com. You can download the app, and that's what I do with people. What I do is I make sure not just talk about it. I say download, like my mother, I said download the app. I showed her how to download the app. Then had her, asked her, what prompt, what do you want to know about? And I would use it, let her see it, and then ask her to start using it. And now she uses it all the time. So sometimes we just got to tell people to pull out the app. Don't talk about it. We're all talking about it, but let's make sure we actually use it. And I know sometimes you download that. There is different types. OpenAI has ChatGPT. There is Google that has Gemini, right? It's Gemini 1. Then there's Microsoft that's invested in OpenAI. So there's different ones. There's different large language models, but start with ChatGPT. They are, like Aki said, is the Uber of it, and just start playing around with it. It's nothing like doing it versus just talking about it. All right.
Get hands-on. Dr. Roebuck, I will give you the final word.
I'm going to speak to the mature audience. I want to challenge you to do very much what Solomon said to do. For example, we feel like we're out of control when it has to deal with our health. Example, I told a friend of mine, you have a health issue? Let's go on ChatGPT. I'm such and such an age, I have such and such a disease. I want you to give me 5 major questions to ask the doctor in order for me to get a better quality of health. And I printed all out for her. She took it to the doctor, and the doctor said, where did you get these questions? And because of that, her medicine changed. She got physical therapy. She improved her health at least 50%. Use this to enhance the quality of your life and not feel like you're being in bondage when it comes to your wellness, your care, who you are, what you're going to do, and how you're going to leave your mark in this world, in this community. Okay? That's all I got to say.
Mic drop.
All right, listen. We didn't know we was going to church today. Taking us to church. I want you to all join me in giving a huge debt of gratitude and thanks to our panelists, Dr. Deborah Roebuck, Suleiman Rahman, Aki Bajulaye, and Shelton Mercer. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your wisdom with us today. We appreciate it. Yeah, we had a couple folks scan the code here to submit some questions, so I am gonna read a couple of those really quickly. I'm going to read this one because I know a little something about this one. This is from Mark Coleman with the Tactile Group. In light of the recent case of the deep fake with the high school principal in Baltimore and the need for authenticity, can you speak to some tools or techniques we can use to discern what is real? I will, and I'm sure Aki probably has a couple as well, but I will throw one out there for you. It's called AIorNot.com. AIorNot.com. You can go on that website, you can upload photos, or you can upload audio clips, and it will tell you if it was likely AI generated. AIorNot.com. So that is one resource that you can use when you're getting all this stuff coming at you in your social media, where you can start to try to verify. None of these tools are perfect yet. And they never may be perfect 100%, but at least you can approach this analysis with a healthy dose of skepticism, and you have some way to start the process of trying to verify what you're seeing on the internet. And if any of my panelists had any other tools, please share.
Well, I think Steph hit it on the nail. That's a good site. And I also just echo something Suleiman said earlier on about how this is sort of like the dial-up phase of AI, in that you could still, if you pay close enough attention to it or just sit with the image or the video for long enough, you'll likely be able to tell that this isn't a real person talking, maybe like a little bit more monotone. And so I believe there's going to be a natural intersection between AI and other emerging technologies like a blockchain, And so when it comes to identity verification, a lot of what's being done right now with blockchain and some of the actual blockchains that are being developed, some of those solutions are going to be able to regulate some of these issues with identity verification. And then the platforms that we all have been using, like your YouTubes and your Twitters and Instagram, they're all kind of like manually adding in the AI verification. So soon you'll probably start seeing indications at the top right or on the screen, like whether something is AI or not.
Thank you very much. Here is a question from Christian J. This is a great question. Do you believe it to be the responsibility of the users, the government, or the creators, the companies, to call for the regulation of AI to say, okay, this may be going too far? Who's in charge of regulating AI?
I'll take that. So it's a raging debate, right? I work with a few policy groups in DC around this, and we are in the first inning. We're at the early stages. There is a need to treat, I believe, artificial intelligence the way we treat the internet. And so most of you may understand the internet actually has regulatory bodies. So there's the ICANN, which is international, which all of those .nets, .orgs, .tv, whatever you see, they monitor that. But the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, actually monitors online activity. So if you are a victim of some type of fraud or misinformation online, you can report that to the federal government. With AI, there's a coalition been put together through Congress. There is, White House is leaning in, and there's a group of the big tech companies that have been meeting to figure this out. Now, there's a lot of pushback from the tech companies because whenever you have regulation, you have run the risk of reducing revenue, and we know how greed is so rampant in our society. So we are in this really crazy kind of wrestling match, if you will, kind of the octagon to who's going to win the battle. I think the right measure of government oversight with being good citizens, and some of that becomes us as users, consumers. We have to call on companies to say, you got to do better. You know, you can't just take all my data, make billions of dollars. You can't just take all my time, make more billions, and then now you're going to delude me and deceive me every time I don't know which way is up. So I think there's some online activism and there's some people activism that, again, we should be a part of. We should be a part of mainstream movements that are telling government and big tech and big corporate, be better citizens, be responsible, treat us like we are equal in the table of humanity so that we're not just continue run amok and downtrodden while they become richer. So there's going to be a lot more coming up, but there's some petitions, and I don't know if our information is out here. You can find me on every social platform, and if we're around later, you can reach out. We'll give you some resources that you can look up.
Did any other panelists want to address
Yeah, I would just
regulate
say,
AI?
yeah, I would say between those different stakeholders, I think at the user level it's very difficult to expect everyone not to be bad actors. So the reality is we have to do it at a government level, but also a lot of this stuff is open source. So people have the opportunity to go in and change it the way they want to. It's almost like the cat is out the bag, if you will, unfortunately, on a lot of this stuff. But at the infrastructure level, if government can start to regulate at an infrastructure level where all these different LLMs are accessing data and things of that sort, if we can actually get to that governance. And right now, unfortunately, our government is behind. They're not as advanced on technology, so these companies are having to self-regulate themselves at this point until government catches up to all the possibilities of fraud and undermining unintended consequences to communities.
And we all know how well that's going. Here is a question from an anonymous submission. what Black community initiatives can we develop to establish an AI governance model? This would continue to address the DEI needs and help guide the moral compass and fiber and accountability of proper AI usage. This is very similar to how companies and higher education entities have started an AI corporate governance model. What does the panel suggest locally, nationwide, or globally?
I nominate Suleiman and Game Changers and P4 Hub. If you start it, I'll join it. I think you have built a community, a strong community of AI enthusiasts and experts, and I think that's a great idea. Whoever the anonymous was, please let us know who you are after we're done. That's a fantastic idea. This is happening in San Francisco and LA, where I also live. I'm working with a group in DC right now on something similar, and to do it here in Philly, and I'm not kidding, I am nominating you, but I know you got a lot on your plate, but I think you have been a trailblazer, and the community, the trust you have in the community around this specific issue, bring in some of these experts here, and I'm looking at you, Stephanie Humphrey. You know, we've got some amazing experts in this city. To come together and help that form would be a fantastic idea and could be a great insulator for the community and probably a global model that we could put together.
Yeah, and for those who are interested, we have information for the Game Changers program to learn, and that's what it's about. It's about us collectively learning together. It's like a gym membership for learning AI and continuously learning and staying on top of it. And the only way we're going to govern this is to know how it works, how it impacts our communities, and to have multiple different stakeholders who can bring up and make us aware of some of the challenges and how it can undermine our community. So it is a collective effort of us using these tools, being aware, having that mastermind. Two or more minds creates a more powerful mind, if you will, and that's what we've created.
Fantastic. All right. I mean, it sounds like I'm on the hook for something. I don't know what yet, but I'm on the hook for something. It's all good. Richard Ashby, who is the president of the Pennsylvania Black Librarians Caucus, asks, what harm is being done to our children regarding literacy competency? And I think I would love to get our panel's perspective on AI and young people and mental health, the developing brain, kind of that whole thing, because I think we sometimes leave young people out of the conversation because we assume they already know. And, oh, they're digital natives. They got that phone in their hand all the time. They know what they're doing. We don't have to talk about them. But I don't want to leave young people out of this conversation as well. So just perspectives on how we help and guide young people as they engage in these tools, even if we may not be the most proficient at the tools ourselves.
Yeah, one of the things is it's a very powerful tool for one-to-one learning now. So you think about tutors. I mean, imagine we can scale tutoring for young people to meet them where they are to help them to grow. So there's a lot of two of the fields that is going to have huge impact is education and healthcare. So the opportunity for us to make sure that that we have these tools deployed, whether it's education, but also how our young people are using it. I shared it earlier, just the same advice I give to adults is for young people is that make sure they're using it to make them smarter, but not to eliminate that critical thinking, right? To make sure they're working alongside with it to maybe it's to write a report, but now them to edit it and critically think, read it, and think about how they would change it and change their ideas and make sure we monitor those things. We're not going to just hide it and say this doesn't exist and then try to find all the ways that young people can't use AI. It's kind of like a calculator. It's like telling our young people you can't use a calculator. Use it, but use it as a tool, but make sure we still build those critical thinking skills and finding ways. We have to think differently about education and curriculum and how we make sure we still get our young people thinking as well.
If there are any other parents on the panel, I'd love to, or even if not, I would love to hear how you would engage a young person around this technology.
So I'm not a parent, but what I'll say is I feel like with the changes happening in society with tech and AI and even just nature of work, at times it feels like we are living in a society that can be devoid of human connection. And so I think alongside pushing AI and using these tools and developing these skills, it's important to still make sure that we're cultivating in-person community, getting kids to play at the playground, and some of the we might call older school type of methods of rearing children that can sometimes get lost with how our society is changing.
Well, as a dad, that's a good advice. Mike, of two Gen Zers, they're Gen Zers, who are digital natives and have embraced. My son is a whiz at this stuff. He is running circles around some of my developers sometimes. But to your point, I would treat this as you would treat any other outside influence in the lives of your children. So the same way we look at media and the internet and social media, as we want to have monitors and filters, and it's harder to do these days. You need to be aware as a parent or a grandparent or a caretaker that the acceleration and the proliferation of the bombardment of outside influence has increased exponentially. And so that just means that you've got to be more vigilant, right? You've got to be more engaged, and you should have those conversations. How are you getting your information? A lot of parents don't necessarily have that conversation. Epistemology is important. Where is your child learning? There are people who are teaching them entire ideologies within a 10-minute YouTube video that you would never even want in your household, right? And so it's not necessarily the AI itself, but the ability for technologies like AI to just turbocharge the deluge of these things become additional threats. But they also present additional opportunities because, again, if you as a family can get in front of the large screen and put up a ChatGPT session or a Copilot session, whatever it is, and start to do some family. Let's plan our family dinner on using ChatGPT. Let's plan the movie night using this. Let's plan an outing to the park or our next family vacation. Using the tool in your everyday life will help you see what your children already know about the technology, so you're not guessing.
Dr. Roebuck, any advice?
I don't have children, but I have nieces. And I have talked to them. I have shared with them. A lot of times when we're looking at technology, we separate the generations. Oh, I am a baby boomer and you are millennial. I say come together, mentor each other. Say, okay, I know I can do this with AI, but how did you used to do this? Because you want to build both of those skills together, that you are not enemies, but you are partners, and you are shared resources among each other. So I respect you, and you respect me, and we can come together and times 10? Times 10.
And exit, that's right. All right. I think we have time for one more question. I'm going to read from Simone Ammons, an entrepreneur. There is a lot of background work that goes into supporting AI, including data collection, data storage, and data visualization. This cuts across all fields, particularly health and patient data. Should there also be a push to fill these support functions from our community from the perspective of the source of the data itself? I'm not sure. I'm just reading off. Is Simone still here?
It was about talent. It was a talent question, right? About jobs? Yeah.
Like, or should we be creating, or should we be sort of more involved in the data side of it?
Absolutely. I mean, when we think about AI, there's three, where ChatGPT, when you're creating your own apps and things of that sort out of it, is the prompting that you can control how the output comes. It's the data that you input into to refine the current data that's in there as well. So what information we're feeding into it. And then there's also the actions, how you get it to actually take actions. It can actually do things now where you use tools like Zapier and others where ChatGPT can work with and talk to other apps as well. So those are the three kind of variables that we have: prompting it, the data we insert into it, and the actions that we ask it to do. And that data is really critical. So absolutely, we need to make sure that our data is implemented into it. All the things we talked about earlier, all those biases that, or the healthcare information that we're not included in, will make the information, the output much more better if our data is a part of that as well.
And I think related to that, perhaps there are, data science is a field of study, and like every other field, AI is helping to level the playing field. So there are additional careers and jobs that people who may not have a 4-year or a terminal degree can be qualifying for. And we're seeing more employers, and I love that question about the healthcare field. So healthcare, government, service industries, travel, and hospitality industries are looking for workers and who have skills around being able to understand data, and AI can help you be able to develop those skill sets. But it's not so much just learning how to do prompts, it's also being able to learn how to store and analyze data. And so having the ChatGPT or the LLM teach you the basics of data science is something you couldn't do 2 years, 3 years ago. Now you could spend several weekends, sign up for an online course, and have the AI tool help develop a skill set that would transfer into a well-paying job.
Okay, final question. I think maybe someone's looking for a thumbs up, thumbs down on AI. Jasmine Rivas-Brown, DiverseForce affiliate. Do you think AI is more beneficial or harmful? Like, so overall, are we bullish or bearish on AI?
So I'm an optimist, and I'm saying bullish because that's what I can control. I can control how I leverage this. You can control how you leverage it to benefit you. You can have to, and I said it depends on, it's like fire, right? You can use it for good, or you can use it to destroy you. So we don't have, as an inanimate situation, like how you're going to leverage it in a responsible and productive, constructive way. So it really comes down to where you position yourself around AI and how it will be beneficial or more detrimental to you.
I'm going to go net bullish. And I'll say that, Suleiman said fire, I'll say that you can rear a child to go the right way, you can rear a child to go the wrong way. It's what I've used before. And I think it's around how we train these models, how we interact with them, how over a longer period of time, we also as a society don't get too arrogant around the potential of AI and what it can mean long term. You hear about these conversations with artificial general intelligence and getting into those kind of concerns that people have. And I would also say that at the very least, we see that this is where society is going. So for my friend who asked the question, at the very least, understand what's happening and make sure that you're aware.
Doctor, I'll defer to you if you wanted to answer that. Okay. I'm a realist, so bearish, bullish, both of them are big, hairy beasts, and one can buck you off, one will chew your arm off. It's just real, folks. This is what sometimes you have to embrace where society is and where it's going. And somebody said, you can jump on the train or you can get run over. Well, let's not. We ain't got it. This train has stopped here, right? We can get on the train. We can figure this thing out, and then we can start building our own tracks, right? We can build our own systems and our own railways that are going to benefit society. But you can't do that if you're not on the train, if you're not in the wind that's blowing, if you're not in the rivers that are flowing. And so there really is no choice. Now, am I saying you got to take your entire life and put it on ChatGPT? No, that's not the issue. The issue is, though, 10 years ago, how many of you were using Facebook? How many of you were using Instagram 10 years ago, right? 24 years ago, neither one of them existed. We're in the year 2024. So they have proliferated our lives, and 50 years ago, Google didn't exist. So we have to really be careful to understand that when technologies come, there's some things that are historic, and they are not going anywhere. And so we just have to determine, how do I become involved in this so that I'm not left behind? And then as a collective, as leaders today, together, we can say, how do we create some protective bodies that help make sure that our folks are not just swimming in the ocean by themselves, but that we're, as a collective, trying to lift our community to the point where we can have a voice at the table of how the decisions of what the future AI. I'm super interested in how many people will join in so we can sit at those tables of policy and power, say to them, nope, that's not going to work. We got to do it this way. Or yes, that we like that. Or these are the things we want to ensure that our contributions are counted as we see the future go forward.
And we are going to have to leave it there. I want to give a huge thank you to everybody that tuned in to this special Philly Tech Week program on WURD 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURDRadio.com, and all of our streaming platforms. We are ending the live broadcast.